Our protagonist was born as an illegitimate child of one of the most powerful martial arts families. From a young age, he had only one goal: to earn the recognition of his family. However, his dream was shattered when he was diagnosed with an illness that prevented him from practicing martial arts or even training in magic. He was cast out of the clan and ultimately, at his end, betrayed and killed by his own relatives, yet he was given a second chance to change everything, returning to the moment of his birth with newfound abilities and a determination to set things right. Our story begins in the unexplored northern region of Korea, where a group of mercenaries is accompanied by several masked individuals on a mission to that area. One of the mercenaries watches the masked individuals with a concerned gaze, and when his companion notices this, he asks if this is his first exploration mission. The young man replies that he has ventured into gates and dungeons before, but this is his first time entering an unexplored region, which makes him somewhat nervous. His companion laughs, telling him that he'd better keep his composure as no one has put foot in these areas for hundreds of years, meaning they are likely teeming with monsters, and they might even encounter some ancient beasts. The young man responds by saying that despite this, they can rely on their expedition leader, especially since he belongs to the prestigious Lee family and is the patriarch's brother, which means his strength must be formidable at that moment. His companion's expression changes, and he glances at the leader with a smirk, questioning whether he is truly referring to that man. He then explains that the leader is nothing more than an illegitimate son who is cast out of the clan for his weakness. Finally, the expedition leader is revealed. He is the 9th illegitimate son of the Lee family and the protagonist of our story. Tool the mercenary continues, saying that school not only lacks talent, but also seems lazy, as he remains merely a 7th-ranked martial artist despite his age. Just then, one of the masked individuals approaches Shul, informing him that it is time to move. School looks at him for a moment without saying a word, then gives a brief nod before standing up to follow them. It is later revealed that these masked individuals belong to the Shadowblade team, directly serving the patriarch of the prestigious Lee family. Their mission is supposedly to protect Shal, yet he does not feel reassured as he harbors suspicions that something about this mission is amiss. We then learn about our protagonist's past, which was not always so grim as a child. He was filled with dreams and ambitions to prove himself within the great family he was born into. As an illegitimate son, his hopes soared when he was chosen by the highest-ranking weapon during the family's steel ceremony. At that moment, he believed that if he continued to work hard and give it his all, the day might come when he would earn everyone's recognition. However, things did not go as he had expected. He was later diagnosed with a strange illness that afflicted his mana pathways, and the shock came when the doctor informed him that he would never be able to learn magic, nor would martial arts be stable if he attempted to practice them. Under such circumstances, reaching the 9th rank would be nothing short of a miracle. School's father was deeply saddened when the head steward delivered this news to him. When the family members learned of it, they dismissed what happened during the steel ceremony as a mere mistake or coincidence. Despite this, Shul did not give up. He persevered and reached the 7th rank by the age of 25. Determined to prove the doctor wrong, he was overjoyed with his achievement, even though all his siblings had reached that rank at much younger ages. But his joy, the short-lived as he was expelled from the clan when he turned 30. Were it not for his eldest brother's intervention, he would have left as a corpse. Shulux remained on the run for 10 whole years. During that time, chaos spread, the unexplored regions expanded, and monster raids grew in both number and severity. One day, as he sat on the street like a beggar, a newspaper flew into his face, which he caught by chance. His eyes welled up with tears as he read it. He had just discovered that his father, the man who once reigned supreme in martial arts and was the patriarch of the esteemed Lee clan, had passed away. His shock only deepened when he heard someone addressing him as young master. He looked up to find 2 members of the Shadowblade team standing before him. Shul tossed the newspaper aside and asked them sharply how they had found him, but they did not respond. Instead, one of them handed him an official decree addressed to him. Shul feels frustrated by their disregard for his question, but he takes the decree to examine it. He discovers that it is an assignment for an exploration mission in a specific area, but what strikes him as odd is that it bears the signature of Patriarch Jeonsong Chul. Is surprised, as Jeonsong is his 3rd brother, prompting him to wonder what happened to his eldest brother. His thoughts are interrupted by one of the Shadowblade members, who informs him that the departure is set for an hour from now. As the masked man turns to leave, School asks him to wait. He inquires about his eldest brother's fate, but receives no response. Realizing that the team members will not divulge any information on the matter, he tries to understand why he has been assigned such a mission, especially since he has not wielded a sword in 10 years and is merely a 7th-ranked martial artist. The masked man then turns to him, asking if he means to say that he is refusing the order. Shul knows well that refusal means death, so he replies that he will carry out the mission. The Shadowblade members vanish instantly, as if they had evaporated. Shunner grows even more furious over the lack of information and the mission he has been forced into. We return to the present, where Shul is walking with the masked individuals and the mercenaries toward their destination. Suddenly, one of the mercenaries stops, his face filled with astonishment. Upon noticing something unusual before him stands an abandoned building, surprisingly intact despite being in such an isolated region. One of the masked men informs him that they will be entering. Without hesitation, they pass through the gate and cautiously begin exploring the place. As soon as they step inside, They are stunned by the overwhelming number of skulls and skeletal remains, both human and beast alike. But what shocks them even more is the presence of an ancient beast corpse. At that moment, one of the masked individuals orders his comrades to move. Without hesitation, they swiftly charge at the mercenaries. In an instant, they begin slaughtering them one by one with merciless brutality. Schuld and one of the mercenaries are left in utter shock at the scene unfolding before them. They screamed, demanding to know what is happening. One of the masked men responds while attacking the mercenary beside Schuld, telling him that he should have realized from the start that he was doomed. He adds that it is an honor to die for the will of the clan. But before the masked man can deliver the fatal blow, a sword suddenly pierces his abdomen. It is quickly revealed that Schuld was the one who struck him, demanding to know who is behind all this. However, to Schuld's astonishment, the masked man remains standing despite the wound. He grabs the sword lodged in his body and informs Schuld that they were ordered to bring him to this place, then kill him swiftly without leaving a trace before shattering the sword with his bare hand. The masked man continues, warning Schuld not to resist unless he wishes to suffer before dying. Schuld's shock intensifies as he watches the man's wound heal within mere seconds. At that moment, one of the mercenaries attempts to attack the masked man from behind. However, the latter turns in the blink of an eye and slices him in half with a single strike. Schuld falls to the ground, barely dodging the same. 8. The masked man sneers at him, calling him pathetic for thinking he would be stronger than this. He then dashes forward at incredible speed and delivers a powerful kick, sending Schuld flying across the room until he crashes into the corpse of the ancient beast lying there. The impact leaves Schuld in excruciating pain, causing him to cough up blood despite the agony. An overwhelming rage surges within him. He refuses to die like this. He desperately searches for a way to survive and realizes he needs a weapon. Scanning his surroundings, he spots an old sword embedded in the corpse of a massive beast nearby. Without hesitation, he rushes toward it, thinking that even if it is old, a sword strong enough to kill such a formidable creature must surely still be usable. Schuld pulls the sword, hoping it will be of use. However, he is taken aback by what happens next, and freezes in place before his eyes. The sword crumbles into dust and vanishes into the air. He is unable to comprehend why this is happening or how to react. The masked man approaches, remarking that he never expected a member of the Lee clan to be this weak. Still, at the very least, he will die bearing such a great name, he says before delivering the finishing blow. Schuld collapses to the ground, struck down by the masked man. He wonders if this is truly how it all ends, after a life filled with nothing but hardship and endless running. Meanwhile, the sword continues to dissipate into nothingness as he lingers on the edge of death. He thinks that if he were given another chance at life. Then, as he sinks into the abyss, he hears a voice asking whether this child is Ujung's son. The voice startles him. It belongs to his father. When he opens his eyes, he sees his father asking the head steward about Ujung's fate. The steward responds that when they found her, she had already passed away. School's confusion. Rose, not only was his father supposed to be dead, but he also looks younger, and even the head steward appears much younger as well. Schuld tries to reach out to call them, only to be shocked when he sees a small hand. Examining it further, he is utterly stunned to realize that it is his own. Schuld is overwhelmed, unable to grasp what is happening or how he is still alive. He assumes that he must be witnessing his life flashing before his eyes, before moving on to the afterlife. He then instructs the head steward Choi to arrange for a servant and a few Shadow Force members to serve as the child's guards. He also orders that the boy be prepared to attend the steel selection ceremony. Alongside the 8th child, the steward acknowledges the order immediately, but he also expresses concern, pointing out that the child is still too young and unprepared, as is the 8th child, who is only a few months older. However, Lee Jashain, Shula's father and the leader of the Lee martial clan, dismisses the concern, stating that it does not matter. This response leaves Shul even more. Doc. He finally exhales when his father leaves the room, as his presence exuded an overwhelming aura of power and authority. Even though it had been a long time since he had seen his father, Shul begins to reflect again, wondering if this is truly real. Everything feels too tangible to be a mere recollection of memories, and the conversation that just took place actually happened. It was not just an illusion or an old memory, yet he struggles to accept it, telling himself that this cannot be real. If it is, then it means he has returned to his miserable past once again. Months passed following his return to the past, and the awaited day finally arrives within the esteemed Lee clan. It is the day of the steel selection ceremony where the clan's children showcase their talents. Based on the weapons that choose them, his father had been chosen by many weapons, making him the greatest swordsman of his generation. Meanwhile, the swords had chosen his eldest brother, Thomas, who became renowned for his mastery of both magic and swordsmanship. Now it is Chewy's turn, and he feels immense pressure and anxiety about this event, but his thoughts are interrupted. This has made Jaha enters the room with excitement, exclaiming that the young master is fully prepared. She notes with admiration that despite being in a new environment, he never cries and that he is an exceptionally mature and quiet child. She then picks him up in her arms and assures him with confidence that he will emerge from the ceremony with remarkable choices, paving the way for a bright future. Ahead, Shorul is deeply moved by her words. To him, Jaha was like a mother. Unfortunately, she had been forced to leave the estate due to the jealousy and malice of his older siblings. She was the only one who had ever wept for his loneliness as a child. and had stayed by his side until the very end. Determined not to let history repeat itself, Shul makes a firm decision. He will protect her no matter what it takes. At that moment, another maid enters the room, informing them that the preparations for the ceremony are complete, and that they must leave immediately. At the same time, the father is informed that the preparations are complete, meaning they can proceed now without delay. Lord Leja begins making his way to the ceremony site, followed by the children and their attendants. Upon their arrival at the vast ceremonial grounds where a large crowd is gathered, attention is drawn to Shul, who is regarded as the illegitimate son brought from the outside. Little is known about his origins or lineage except that he is the son of the clan leader, Lord Lee Joshin. A discussion arises among the clan elders regarding this matter, present in the gathering. Our Lady, that Kweon, the esteemed clan minister Lord Leja Hong, the eldest son of the clan, Lemio Jung, and the third son, Lee Jin So, the eldest son Mio Jung, expresses his surprise, stating that he does not recall any of them participating in the ceremony at such a young age. His younger brother John Song responds, admitting that he too finds the situation strange. And unexpected, he wonders how this brother suddenly appeared among them, but is nonetheless curious to see what will happen. Patriarch Lee Joshin officially announces the commencement of the steel selection ceremony. He addresses one of the attendants, instructing her to bring forth the child Hua immediately to begin the ritual. The attendant steps forward, carrying the chosen girl. Who is the eighth among the children selected for the ceremony that day? Lord Li Jia retrieves a sharp knife from his pocket to begin the ritual. He then takes the hand of the young girl Hua, who is filled with bewilderment at what is happening. The child is taken aback when the patriarch makes a cut on her hand, causing her finger to bleed. She bursts into tears from the shock and pain. But the ceremony continues. One of the most prestigious swords, the ivory blade, selects her. This sword is considered an artistic masterpiece and had never responded to any previous generation. Lord Li Jia takes the sword and declares that from this moment on, the ivory blade belongs to hoist the attendants, rejoice and congratulate Lady Bikia on the occasion. Considering the filed a rare talent born into this esteemed family, Lady Beck smiles confidently and thanks them for their compliments and blessings. Following this, Lord Li Jia announces that it is now time for Young's ritual. Upon hearing this name, the audience immediately realizes that it refers to the illegitimate child brought from the outside. They question how he is being allowed to participate in such a sacred ceremony. However, the patriarch ignores the murmurs and proceeds with the ritual, cutting Shell's finger. The child does not shed any tears, though he feels a slight pain, prompting the patriarch to pat his head in praise of his bravery. Shell recalls that in his previous life, he had been chosen by the Clear Echo Sword, one of the heavenly ranked blades. However, he understands that he cannot rely on his past choices in this life. Meanwhile, Lord Hong observes the situation, listening to the murmurs of those opposing the participation of an illegitimate child in the ceremony. Lady Back's expression also suggests she is not in a good mood. Yet when Hong considers the matter himself, he finds that having an illegitimate son of his brother is not surprising. However, he also realizes that if the situation remains unchanged, the boy will face a difficult life. Surviving here as an illegitimate son would be nearly impossible. For instance, the strict elder of the clan, Li Chul-jung, makes his presence known, showing clear interest in the illegitimate child. Hong greets him respectfully. Despite feeling uneasy and finding it difficult to read the elder's expression, the elderly Young asks Hong whether this is the child that the patriarch brought to the estate. Hong confirms, stating that this is indeed the child whom the Shadow Force discovered and retrieved. The elder expresses his surprise at the patriarch's decision, questioning why he would bring in an illegitimate child of unknown origins and allow him to participate in the steel selection ceremony in such a manner. However, in the end he concedes that if the patriarch has tested the child himself, then he must know that this ceremony is meaningless for an illegitimate child. The minister grows angry at the elder's remark and sharply demands to know what he means by such words. The old man apologizes, in response explaining that his own story is not much different. He too was once an illegitimate child who failed miserably in being chosen by any weapon. It is a well-known tale, for an illegitimate child will always remain just that, and he must know his place. Minister Hong grows enraged, unable to tolerate Elder Young's insinuations any longer, and bursts out in fury, declaring that he will not continue listening to such talk. However, his outburst is suddenly interrupted by a blinding light radiating from the ceremonial grounds, leaving everyone in shock at its intensity. The elder, however, is the most stunned among them, unable to believe what is happening or what it means. While Minister Hong is no less astonished, his reaction is different. His face fills with pride and joy, remarking in disbelief that even though he is witnessing it with his own eyes, he still cannot fully accept it. The light emanating from the ceremonial site and the weapons is more dazzling than ever before. Among them, the Blood Spirit Spear Iron Epic Blade shines brilliantly alongside the legendary sword Heavenly Maho and the Great Celestial Dragon Bow. Even weapons that already have chosen wielders respond strongly to the presence of the illegitimate son Young. It is an unbelievable sight. Even the elder members of the clan find their own weapons. Reacting to him, the eldest brother Jan Suong questions whether anyone can believe what they are witnessing, admitting that their younger brother appears to possess an unimaginable talent. Jan Suong then affirms that it certainly seems that way. As the crowd is engulfed in astonishment, murmurs spread. How could an illegitimate child possibly achieve this? But the patriarch silences everyone with his firm voice, stating that the clan's laws are clear. Every weapon that chooses the young master must belong to him. However, the matter was not so simple. He then declares that he will accept suggestions that might help resolve this issue. Minister Hong raises his hand, announcing that he has an idea, prompting Patriarch Li Jie to ask him to present it. The minister proposes that granting the child all these weapons would contradict the true purpose of the steel selection ceremony, as the ritual must continue for generations. Therefore, the child should be allowed to choose only one weapon from among them. The patriarch agrees, remarking that it is not a bad idea and deciding to implement it. As a result, the weapons are presented before Young and he is placed at the center to choose the one he desires. Shella feels that this ceremony is entirely different from the steel selection he experienced. In his previous life, however, this works in his favor as he decides to seize the opportunity to gain the greatest advantage possible. He begins walking among the weapons, examining the swords such as the dragon-slaying butterfly of Zillion, the sacred spears crafted from the bones of the holy white whale, and the magical staves like Valheim, forged from the world tree where the spirits slumber. He also passes by the celestial sword, said to have been created when the sun, moon, and stars aligned. But he is searching for the greatest weapon of them all, and he has already made his decision. The father notices the direction in which his son Young is heading and realizes his destination. He is moving toward the sword discovered by the clan's founder in the unexplored lands. A sword covered in dust, shrouded in mystery, with no one ever having been able to unlock its true power. This is the Black Twilight Sword, the weapon school has chosen. Patriarch Li Jia ponders the known abilities of this sword, which do not justify its classification as a heavenly ranked weapon, yet it has been stored among the celestial weapons, perhaps because it serves as a symbol tied to the Ryan's founder. None of the clan's descendants or ancestors had ever been chosen by this sword. Still, he is uncertain whether this is merely a random selection by a young child, or if there is a deeper significance behind it. Father Li Jia lifts Young in his arms, affirming that this is undoubtedly another divine intervention. The child Young had made his choice, and in turn, he had been chosen by the sword of the great ancestor, the Black Twilight Sword. Thus, the steel selection ceremony came to an end. At that moment, Lady Beck commented that as an illegitimate son, Young would become a great nuisance to them. However, she would not hesitate to eliminate him if he ever stood in her way. 9 years have passed since the day of the steel selection, and Chung Yan grew up within the Li clan's palace. One morning, he informed his caretaker that he would be heading for training in the afternoon. She attempted to accompany him, but he refused, assuring her that he could go on his own. The caretaker remarked that the trainee ground seemed empty, questioning why you would go to train alone, especially since the first training area was not particularly large. Young replied that someone was waiting for him there. Suddenly, a loud scream interrupted their conversation. The caretaker noted that it seemed someone was training in the 7th area. Indeed, a young trainee was present there with an instructor warning her about the way she was gripping her sword, cautioning that she would end up injuring herself if she continued that way. That trainee was Li Hua, who was practicing swordsmanship. When Young and his caretaker arrived at the scene, they realized that the scream had come from her. The caretaker advised Young to address her as his elder sister, rather than calling her 8th or using any other title. Young muttered in protest, pointing out that the age difference between them was barely 5 months, so why should he speak to her with excessive respect? They continued listening as the instructor gave her advice, telling her to treat the sword as if it were an extension of her body, and to grip it carefully to avoid injury. However, Hui became furious at his remarks and yelled at him to stop bothering her with constant criticism, insisting that what truly mattered was fighting with the sword, regardless of how she held it. The instructor attempted to calm her down, urging her to take her time. Try again, reassuring her that he had confidence in her success this time. At that moment, Young asked his caretaker about the identity of the instructor who was making such an effort to train Hua. She responded that he was Beckley Haiwan from the Ebony Division. Young remarked that he seemed far too talented to be an instructor for a 9-year-old girl. His caretaker reacted emotionally, pointing out that a suitable instructor for his talent would be assigned soon as well. Then she suddenly burst into tears, apologizing for her inability to care for him properly due to her own shortcomings, especially since Lady Hua had grown up in an environment that provided proper nutrition. Young asked her to stop repeating such talk, assuring her that he was grateful to her, but had no need for trainers like those. He explained that they had come to the clan because of its martial prowess, not for his sake personally. Moreover, he revealed that he had already found the right people to learn from in the first training grounds, an exclusive training area. The space was filled with weapons that symbolized the prestige of the Li clan, renowned for its martial arts excellence. Young commented that the place felt more like a museum than a training ground, but he knew there was a good reason for its existence. The reason was that this area stored ancient weapons, unlike the other training zones. Young looks around and spots an old sword, stepping forward to take it. He considers that for now, he can use it solely for training. As he begins practicing, he reflects on the sudden changes that have taken place since he returned 9 years into the past. However, what astonished him the most among them all was his strange new ability, the power to read the memories stored within weapons. Young focuses on the memories within the sword, allowing him to reinforce his fundamentals as they form the very basis of advanced techniques. He starts executing the movements. sees in the sword's memories, enabling him to learn and train more effectively than any instructor could teach him. The older and more prestigious a weapon was, and the stronger the bond between it and its wielder, the clearer Young could perceive its memories. After years of training, Young successfully masters the 7-star sword technique, having been able to read most of the memories from the weapons stored here over the past 2 years. However, his concentration is suddenly interrupted when someone comments that it has been a long time since they last saw someone capable of mastering the 7-star sword. Turning around, Young finds himself face to face with the clan minister, his uncle, Lord Hongjai Li, a 4th-ranked warrior, although he is not a direct descendant of the clan. His acknowledged skills earned him the rank of general. Moreover, he was one of the closest people to Young both in this life and the previous one. Always standing by his side, his uncle speaks with pride, saying that he sees Young training every day and catches sight of him whenever he returns from his duties. He acknowledges the injustice Young feels due to his siblings' discrimination and favoritism against him, but he encourages him to move past it and prove himself. Young replies that he is fine, but he is still a member of the esteemed Li clan. He fully understands that recognition from the clan will only be earned through his swordsmanship skills. That is why he has resolved to prove himself solely through his own strength. Hong feels a sense of pride in him, but at the same time he is troubled by the reality that this boy will always remain an illegitimate child, no matter what he achieves. His uncle then informs him that the time is approaching for him to reach the age of eligibility for the naming ceremony. He then adds that though it might be late to ask this, he wonders if Young would accept him as his instructor until the ceremony arrives. However, Chungziat's response surprises him when he outright refuses the offer. Hong asks why and what makes him unwilling to have him as a personal mentor. Young replies that he is aware of the rule prohibiting him from having a teacher before the naming ceremony, and he does not wish to put his uncle in a difficult position. His uncle responds that his siblings do not care about such rules and break them all the time, training under renowned masters while following diets rich in nutrients. But Young answers that he believes rules should not be taken lightly, even if others disregard them. Moreover, as he had stated before, he wants to prove himself on his own. Uncle Hong is deeply moved. He never expected to hear such words from a child who had not yet turned 10. In fact, Young's gaze reminds him of his eldest brother, the clan leader. Hong replies that it is now evident he will not be able to change Young's mind, noting that he is just as stubborn as his father and not easily persuaded as such. Regrettably, he will be of no use to him. This frustrates Hong, but he still asks if there is anything he can do to help. Young realizes that this is the opportunity he had been waiting for. He had hoped his uncle would ask this very question. He tells him that he does indeed need a favor. Hong, feeling excited, urges him not to hesitate and to tell him what he needs right away. However, his excitement quickly turns into astonishment when Young requests permission to see what lies inside the secret vault. After that, Mr. Hong gets into his car and heads toward a heavily guarded building. However, security guard blocks his path, requesting him to stop for a moment. He then asked for his identification and the reason for his visit to this particular place. Hong responds by introducing himself as the general supervisor of Tai Hong, explaining that he is here for the regular evaluation. Accompanying him is the youngest son of the Song Mali family, Mr. Young Song Lee, who is here as an observer. To learn and gain experience, the security guard confirms his identity and then grants him entry. As the gates open, the car proceeds inside. Young tries to act with childlike innocence to avoid suspicion, looking around in awe as if he were a fascinated child. He continues to express amazement at the sheer size of the place. But Mr. Hong notices his unusual reaction and asks if he is truly that excited. Young enthusiastically affirms, explaining that this warehouse holds the family's greatest treasures. This convinces him that once he reaches his destination, he will find what he is searching for, a legendary weapon and an ancient artifact unknown to most. For those who seek rare relics, this warehouse may contain items beyond their wildest expectations, as it is the armory of the Li martial clan. At this point, Mr. Hong explains that the lower floor houses weapons that have been sealed away for certain reasons. Young, in astonishment, asks if these weapons are at the level of monstrous entities that could consume their wielders. Mr. Hong acknowledges his knowledge of such matters, but warns him that recklessly using such a weapon could lead to both physical and mental destruction. When he notices a hint of concern on Young's face, he asks if he wishes to back out if he is afraid. However, Young firmly denies any fear. Mr. Hong reassures him, stating that there is no need for concern since Young won't be able to enter such a dangerous place anyway. He then informs him that he will proceed to oversee matters in return shortly. Additionally, he advises Young to take his time and explore the area at his leisure. Young bids him farewell as he departs. The moment he is left alone, he sighs, muttering that pretending to be an innocent child is no easy task. He then uses the elevator to descend to the ground floor, a place known as the Weapons Tomb. It is where numerous great relics and weapons are sealed away. But his purpose here is to find a specific weapon, the Infinity Dagger, also known as Mujin. It may appear to be just a dagger, but when infused with magical energy, it transforms, allowing its wielder to alter its shape, length, weight, and all of its attributes at will. Before he traveled back in time, the person who discovered this weapon was Li Jiansong due to its overwhelming power and unconventional nature. he was granted the title of Man, meaning the infinite variable. Young recalls that this very title was what enabled his third brother Lee Jon-song to take leadership of the clan instead of the eldest sibling. Later, he tracked him down and eliminated him to remove any potential threat. However, this is all Young knows up to this point. To prevent history from repeating itself, he has only one option. Though the search will take time, he has no choice but to inspect these weapons one by one, striving to obtain Mujin before his brother Lee Jon-song can find it. Thus Young devotes his time to searching for the Infinity Dagger. However, an hour has passed since he arrived, and he has examined nearly every dagger-like weapon, yet he has found nothing that resembles Mujin. Despite this, he remains certain that the weapon is here. Therefore, he must search more thoroughly without any carelessness. As he continues exploring the area, he accidentally bumps into a table, causing a rusty weapon to fall from it. This surprises him, as the weapon is heavily encrusted with rust, making him wonder how it could have reached such an extreme state of decay. As Young approaches the weapon, an immense surge of energy bursts from it, startling and alarming him as he has no idea what is happening. All of a sudden, without any warning or explanation, he finds himself in an unfamiliar place, a scene of devastation, corpses and chaos. He quickly realizes that this must be the memory embedded within the rusted dagger. Yet something about these memories feels vastly different from any other weapon he has encountered. A strange sensation washes over him, as though he had been in this very place before. Suddenly, an overwhelming presence fills the air, pressing down on everything around it with immense force. He then discovers that this presence belongs to a being that emerged from a blue rift long ago, a primordial monster that had devoured countless civilizations, known as the Apocalypse Beast. A wave of fear engulfs him as he realizes he is facing imminent doom. Even if this is just a memory, there is no possible way he could defeat such a being. The only logical option is to flee. But just as he considers running, an ancient warrior resembling a samurai appears behind him. With breathtaking speed, the warrior charges toward the beast while Young watches in complete shock. He follows the warrior's movements as he strikes the monstrous being down in a single slash. At that moment, Young realizes that the man, for him, is a demon-slaying warrior. However, he remains unable to comprehend how this warrior managed to annihilate such a colossal entity with just one attack. His curiosity about the fighter's identity deepens until he is utterly stunned, realizing that the warrior has noticed his presence and is now questioning who he is. This should not be possible. The warrior then demands to know why he is in this place, and it does not stop there. Without hesitation, he launches an attack, declaring that he will send Young out of this world in the most merciful and painless way possible. As Young lets out a cry in response to the assault, he suddenly finds himself back in reality. The rusted dagger falls from his grasp as he remains frozen in fear and awe at what he just witnessed. His body begins trembling uncontrollably. It is the first time he has ever experienced anything like this. The sensation from witnessing the weapon's memories felt more real than mere illusion, as if he had actually been there. At that moment, Young notices something strange about the rusted dagger. He picks it up again, becoming absolutely certain that this is the weapon he came for. He deliberately works his hand with the blade, letting it draw blood, sealing his decision to claim it as his own. The dagger flares with intense light, its energy bursting forth before gradually settling down, a sign that it has acknowledged Young as its new master. Excited, he begins testing the weapon, striking with it multiple times, even attempting to replicate the movements of skilled sword masters. Though his heart races with exhilaration at wielding such a powerful weapon, he grows more confident with each motion. By the time he finishes experimenting, he has no doubt the weapon in his possession is Mujin. This realization fills him with immense pride and satisfaction. A week after obtaining Mukin, Young continues his relentless training in mastering its use, disguising it as a ring on his finger to ensure no one discovers its existence. However, his mind remains fixated on recalling the stance and technique the warrior and the dagger's memory used to slay the beast. Yet his understanding of it remains limited. He knows only the name of the technique and its form, as if he is still far from grasping its full potential despite this. Beyond its sheer power, the warrior's movements exuded grace and precision. No matter how many times Young attempts to replicate them, he fails each time. Yet he does not feel frustrated, for before he turned back time, he was only half talented. He could not even master the basic techniques of his clan. Though it is just one technique, it is the first time he has ever encountered an advanced combat style. That is why you must understand how the man executed those flawless movements. After all, he was the closest person to the warrior, and the only one who could remember his exact way of fighting. Suddenly, an unexpected thought crosses Young's mind. He is not an adult like the warrior he saw in Mujin's memories. He is merely a child, no older than 9. It is unreasonable to expect myself to imitate the movements of a grown man, so naturally he cannot fully display his potential. He decides to adjust the technique to suit his own body and strength, executing it smoothly and with controlled precision. Young closes his eyes, attempting to gather his energy and focus more on his own combat style. He then begins wielding his sword in a manner that suits his body. Utilizing fluidity and calm precision with repeated attempts, he finally succeeds in demonstrating his true strength. Executing an impressive sword strike, a wave of exhilaration washes over him as he realizes he is finally beginning to sense true power. Now all that remains is finding a solution to his struggle with using magical energy, despite his repeated attempts to apply the magical energy circulation technique he learned long ago. It never seems to work for him, which means something crucial is still missing. This makes it incredibly difficult to perform techniques that rely on magical energy, but in any case, he has no choice but to keep trying. Just as he resumes his training, a girl suddenly appears behind him holding a sword, and asks where he learned that technique. Young turns to her, puzzled by her identity, though he immediately notices that her black hair and honey-colored eyes indicate that she belongs to the direct lineage of the Song Mali clan. The girl responds in surprise, wondering if he truly does not recognize her or if he is merely pretending. However, she soon laughs it off, joking that it is entirely possible he has never seen her. 24, especially since she rarely shows her face. She then steps closer and asks for his name. Young replies by introducing himself. The girl chuckles, commenting that his name is quite unique, before introducing herself as Li Kenghua. At that moment, Young realizes that she is his youngest aunt Kenghua, something his uncle had once mentioned to him before he turned back time. Aunt Li Kyung approaches Young again, repeating her question about where or from whom he learned that technique. Young in turn asks why she is so interested in knowing. She explains that what he just performed is an ancient martial art known as Gumu Soul, one of the combat styles she is particularly fond of. She then elaborates that in this historical, powerful magical beasts are still active. Reaching into her pocket, she retrieves an old journal or book and hands it to Young, saying it is a gift from her. He is taken aback by the gesture, but accepts it nonetheless, then asks her about its contents. She simply urges him to open it and read. As he flips through the pages, Young realizes that it is a handwritten journal, though the handwriting is terrible. However, its content appears to discuss magical techniques. Not only that, but it also contains high-level combat knowledge that is difficult for him to comprehend. This makes him wonder if the rumors about his aunt were actually false at that moment. Aunt Li Kyung points to some of the writings explaining that these ancient magical techniques are based on magical pathways in the past. Magic could only be used by channeling it through internal pathways. In the modern era, however, magic is stored within the heart before being utilized. She then asks if he believes it is wise to dismiss ancient magic as useless, pointing out that it is entirely possible that past magical techniques were far more advanced than those of the present. For this reason, she has been researching amplification and transformation techniques, but she still lacks sufficient records. Young realizes that she is referring to techniques similar to Mujin's magical abilities, so he asked her to wait for a moment. He then turns back to his sword, contemplating how magical energy spreads from its source throughout the body. He soon notices that the energy does not return to its source, which means all he has to do is circulate the magic solely through the magical pathways. This was the method he previously failed to understand from the warrior and Mujin's memories. But now to some extent he has reached a viable conclusion, and he confirms his success when he sees his strike become significantly stronger. Young is completely astonished as he witnesses firsthand the immense difference when using magical energy, and his aunt, Li Kyung, is equally shocked. She approaches him and asks if he fully understands what he just accomplished, and how he managed to achieve it. She then inquires whether this is truly the martial art he has been training in, and asked him to explain how he was able to master it. Young avoids giving a direct answer, and instead asks her why he should reveal such information. She responds by saying that he managed to reach this level thanks to the notebook she gave him, and besides, she has dedicated her entire life to ancient martial arts. She spent over 10 years searching for this combat style, even after being cast out of the family home. She then offers him a deal if he tells her she will do anything he asks in return. Young replies that he has 3 conditions before answering her. The first is that she must never speak about him or anything related to him to anyone, no matter what, unless he grants her permission. She agrees immediately, but asks why he is so secretive. Young explains that he dislikes people talking about him recklessly. He then continues stating that the second condition is that she must never lie to him again so they can build mutual trust. He assures her that if she abides by this, he will tell her the truth as much as he can. She agrees to this condition as well, then asks about his final request. Young takes a moment to think, then begins explaining the details of his last condition to his aunt, Li Kyung. A year after Young's encounter with his aunt, he is training in the courtyard when his caretaker approaches. With his aunt present, Young asks why she has come to the training. Once she hands him a sealed envelope, informing him that it arrived today. Young takes the envelope, appearing as though he had expected it, while his aunt Li Kyung remains unaware of its contents. Upon opening it, Young discovers that it contains a summons detailing the instructions for the naming ceremony. However, he quickly notices that the seal and signature do not belong to his father, but rather to elderly Myung Song, which surprises him. He finds it strange as he had not heard any news about being assigned to a mission anytime soon. His aunt Li Kyung becomes furious upon learning about the naming ceremony. Young, puzzled by her reaction, asked why she is so upset. She tells him that they have only just begun achieving some stability, and if he attends the naming ceremony, he will be bound to remain there. She tries to convince him not to go at all. However, Young understands why his aunt is taking such a stance. He knows that they had made an agreement between them and had been conducting research on magical arts together. They had been studying the differences between ancient magic, which relies on the magical core, and modern magic, which depends on magical pathways. working on developing a new form of magic that integrates both. Their approach involved using the magical core to store and alter the properties of magical energy, while utilizing magical pathways to control and activate it efficiently. Thanks to this, Young had gained magical abilities that surpassed those of his peers. But now, his aunt would undoubtedly keep pressuring him not to attend. Still, he knows that failing to appear at the ceremony would have severe consequences, so he tries to reason with her, explaining that he cannot avoid attending the naming ceremony. He reassures her that there is no need to worry, although their research time will be slightly reduced. His training in magic and the restoration of ancient magical arts will continue as planned. His aunt then asks how he intends to accomplish that, especially since his schedule during the naming ceremony will undoubtedly be packed with training. Young replies that he will train in modern magical techniques while simultaneously continuing his study of ancient magical arts, assuring her that there is nothing to worry about. Thus Young begins his special training. The naming ceremony, where instructor Jang Wook announces that they will start by enduring magical attacks. For half an hour, Young notices that things have changed from the past, just as he expected. Previously, as the 9th child, someone who had not even received basic training, he should have been overwhelmed and collapsed instantly, but now he is capable of using magic to defend himself against those attacks. The instructor takes note of what Young is doing, realizing that he is blocking all the attacks effortlessly, as if merely playing with them. What is even stranger is that Young is simultaneously observing the 8th trainee, evaluating her skills and monitoring the effectiveness of her previous training under the instructors. Considering that all of this is coming from an illegitimate child who has yet to turn 10, the situation is incredibly perplexing. At this point, even referring to him as an illegitimate child feels like an insult in light of the abilities he possesses. Instructor Jang Wook reflected to himself, realizing that he needed to reconsider his perspective, especially since this training was not merely preparation for the naming ceremony, but a means to pass down all the knowledge they possess to the young masters. Finally, after an exhausting day of training, Young finishes his session and feels the need to rest. However, he cannot stop thinking about how insane his clan must be for making a 10-year-old endure a barrage of electric shocks under the pretense of building resistance to magical attacks. What he did not expect, however, was for the instructor to apologize for this evaluation method, and he also began to notice that the way others looked at him had changed slightly compared to the past. In any case, he needed to leave now and get some rest before the next training session. As Young prepares to leave, he notices Hwaso suddenly attacking him, but he manages to block her strike. She tells him that she wants to talk to him. Before he leaves, he responds by telling her to be quick as he has no time to waste on her, which makes Hwa furious. She warns him about his words, reminding him that she is the legitimate daughter, whereas he is nothing more than an illegitimate child. Unbothered, Young turns away and walks off, saying he has no time for her, whose anger escalates, and she uses her magical power to attack him, demanding that he not ignore her. While she is speaking, Young notices her resorting to magic, but effortlessly evades her attack again. He stops her by grabbing her by the collar, forcing her to halt. He then tells her that she can go cry to her mother if she wants, but she should stop bothering him because he has no time for her nonsense. Frustrated, Young walks away, but Hwa suddenly starts speaking, telling him that because of what he did along with the incident during the sword possession ceremony at the steel selection ritual, she is now constantly being compared to him. This has made things completely unfair for her. She hardly sleeps, eats only small meals, and does nothing but train, while all Young had to do was be born with a great talent. Young responds by saying that blaming others for personal failures is undoubtedly convenient. As she said herself, he is just an illegitimate child. That means even having the luxury of shifting blame onto others is something he does not have. If she cannot sleep, then she should simply stay awake. If she cannot keep up with him because of her diet, then she might as well stop eating altogether. And if she holds a grudge against him, you should do everything in her power to defeat him. As for an apology for everything he just said, she should take it by force because that is the way of the Song Mali clan. Huich in rage declares that she will surpass him in the naming ceremony and make him feel humiliated for his words. She even claims that she will force him to bow down and beg for her forgiveness as his elder sister. Simply replies that he will be waiting to see if she can make that happen. In the 7th training area designated for the direct members of the family, Lady Bakuya arrives. She orders the servants to leave, stating that she wishes to speak with her daughter in private. Upon entering the hall, she finds Hwa training alone. She calls out to her and asks what she is doing there by herself. Realizing that her mother has arrived, Quad turns to face her. She then responds that she was just training for a while. Lady Beck asks if the rumors about her being defeated by the illegitimate son are true. Hure remains silent, prompting her mother to continue speaking, reminding her that she had told her before if she could not handle him, she needed to crush him if she was doing. All of this to avoid punishment she could stop, as her mother no longer intends to punish her anyway. Juan responds, saying that she fully understands how her mother views her training, but she is doing it because she wants to. She truly desires to defeat that person, not because she was ordered to, but because she wants to achieve it on her own. Her mother, Lady Beck, asks if she has been influenced by that illegitimate son whose training has had no clear foundation so far. She then reminds her that she is from the main lineage of the Songmo Li clan, whereas he is merely an illegitimate child, meaning they are entirely different. Naturally, overcoming him should be expected, but it seems she has been affected by him. which explains her enthusiasm after that. Her mother hands her a bottle containing a liquid, telling her that this is Mim Wang, a deadly poison. She then adds that if she cannot surpass the illegitimate son, she has another option. She can eliminate him. This, after all, is the way of the Song Mo Li clan when it comes to achieving victory. Meanwhile, at Young's residence, his caretaker reviews his weekly results and is visibly surprised. In particular, when she reads the 14th week's report, she finds that Young has secured first place. Young asks her opinion, wondering if she feels relieved that her efforts with him were not in vain. She embraces him and tells him that she did nothing at all. It was his hard work that got him this far. Suddenly, his aunt Lee Kyung bursts into the room, radiating excitement as she urges him to join her for training. Young replies that he has just returned from a training session, but she smiles and tells him that if he trains in magic with her, he will feel all his exhaustion fade away. He responds by saying he has never heard of such a thing, but she insists, confident that he will feel better if he trains with her. Young agrees, mentioning that he actually wants to show her something. His aunt asks him what it is, but then suddenly stops, as if she has already guessed. She then asks him if it has to do with the first star. Young chuckles and looks at her, confirming her suspicion. After that, Young follows his aunt, who begins explaining that the foundation of magical techniques consists of 3 stages. The first stage is body reinforcement, which enhances durability and strength. Next is the inner energy stage, which alters the nature of magical power. Finally, there is the external power stage, allowing the user to manifest supernatural abilities through magic. However, she explains that the magic she wants to teach him is different. Even in the first stage, it allows for multiple forms and a variety of abilities. That is why her magic is divided into phases, known as maturation. Lee Kyung then asks Young if he feels uncomfortable handling his magical energy circuit. She had assumed it would take him at least another year to get accustomed to it. Young replies that he understood everything while studying, but he nearly failed in controlling his magical energy. He had almost disrupted the balance between the energy source and its pathways. His aunt tells him that all he needs to do is allow the energy to flow. Naturally, magical energy moves on its own, just like water, and in the end their bodies are merely vessels that contain this power. She encourages him, expressing her confidence that he will eventually master it, even if it takes time. She has no doubt that he will succeed. She embraces him again, telling him how lucky she is to be training with him. Young tries to free himself, saying she is practically crushing his neck with her strength. She finally lets him go, but he gasps for air. She then tells him that they must begin training now so he can reach the 2nd star in magical energy control. She asked him if he knows that the 1st star he has achieved now is different from an ordinary star. Young replies that he is already aware of that. His aunt can ask him what skill he believes he excels at the most. He takes a moment to think, then answers that swordsmanship is likely his greatest strength. His aunt responds in shock, saying that she does not believe swordsmanship is his greatest strength. Young is surprised by her statement, insisting that she has seen him use sword techniques. She clarifies that while he is indeed skilled in swordsmanship, she sees a talent in him that surpasses even that. His greatest ability, she explains, is his mastery of magic. His magical capabilities are beyond comprehension, far superior to any other skill he possesses. To the extent that any other talent pales in comparison, she adds that she has personally tried training others in the magic she developed, but no one has ever accomplished. What he has. Young is astonished by her words, especially since before he turned back time, he was constantly criticized for his magical abilities. His aunt continues, saying that for someone like him, attaining the 2nd star should not be a challenge. If he succeeds, then the naming ceremony will be incredibly easy for him. From now on, she will be teaching him real techniques. So he needs to pay close attention and focus in order to progress quickly. Young assures her that he will follow her instructions exactly, but he also wants to know what the object beside her is. His aunt laughs, explaining that it will be used in their training. Then, without warning, she hurls something at him with great speed and force. Scratching his face, she tells him that these are iron spheres. She emphasizes that he must be able to release magical energy while in motion. After all, any magical technique that is performed while standing still is nothing more than dead magic. Now it is time to begin training for the naming ceremony. Young forces a smile, fully aware of the grueling training that awaits him during the next training session for the naming ceremony. The leader of the Blood Tiger Corps, Li Zhengquan, introduces himself, announcing that he will now be training the children of the Song Mali clan. He then instructs Young and Hua Li to choose the weapon they wish to use and bring it within 1 minute. Young and Huang move to comply, but Young notices that she keeps glancing at him. He asks if she has a problem with him, why hesitates, then denies it. Insisting that she wants nothing from him, she then asks if he also uses a sword. Young, walking ahead, replies that he does not, while responds by saying that based on her previous observations, she is certain that he has skill in swordsmanship. Afterward, Young and Huat Knight return to Instructor Young, who questions Young about what he is doing. Young explains that he was gathering weapons. The instructor remarks that he only asked them to bring the weapons they would be using. Young replies that these are in fact the weapons he will be using. The instructor eyes him with suspicion, commenting that he had thought Young was a smart student, but now he sees that he is completely foolish. He then instructs him to remember his words carefully, stating that he will teach them vision, but will not impart any specific techniques or stances. He explains that the Songmo Li clan has many secrets known as the Owen hidden techniques. To master these techniques, they must first awaken the sixth sense that lies dormant in their blood. From now on, his role will be to help them awaken their senses, so they should not make his job any harder than it already is. Young and Hwas stand, intensely unsure of what Instructor Young is about to do, but suddenly he attacks them, warning that they must not lose consciousness from the very beginning, and stressing that they must focus immediately. He then delivers a powerful strike at Young, sending him flying, but Young quickly attempts to defend himself and block the blow. The instructor observes Young's reaction. He is impressed by his quick reflexes and ability to counter the attack despite the sudden assault. Young, meanwhile, is astonished that the instructor resorted to such an extreme approach right from the start. He braces himself for the instructor's next move, recalling that in his previous life he never received proper training. But this time things are entirely different, and he must prove himself. Young charges forward, launching an attack on Instructor Young. However, Young is also struck by Commander Jung, and Li Hua tries to take advantage of his distraction while facing Young to attack him, but he quickly turns towards her and strikes with his spear. A whole month passes since their training began, with Commander Jung, and Young comments that they are undergoing which intense training that it feels like their bones are breaking and they are suffering internal injuries. Yet he smiles as he tries to stand up, saying that this is not the kind of training a 10-year-old should endure. But he won't complain. He's starting to adapt to these harsh drills. Then the focus shifts to Li Hua, who had lost consciousness but is now waking up. She asks Young what happened to her, and he tells her that she fainted for the 20th time, while he himself has only passed out 16 times. At that moment, Commander Jung comments that Li Hua has an incredibly strong body, having endured severe blows without suffering any serious injuries. Not even once. As for Young, he has been feeling something strange since the first day of training. Initially, he thought he was just a foolish kid when he saw him carrying so many weapons, but the real surprise was that he could wield them all skillfully. With excitement, he smiles and remarks that only a month has passed, yet he is already growing accustomed to this training. Then Commander Jung calls out to Young and Li Hua, informing them that their training will continue at that moment. He orders them to return to their positions and the training resumes. However, exhaustion is evident on both of them. Young calls out to Li Hua, and she turns to him, irritated, asking what he wants. He tells her that he will give her a signal, and all he asks is for her to block just one of Commander John's attacks on his behalf. She questions why she should do that, to which he responds in a way that annoys her, saying she is not obligated, but he simply wanted to land a good strike on Commander Jong for the first time. Deciding to assist him, Li Hua asks if he is sure about his plan. He confidently replies that he is absolutely certain. She then moves swiftly towards Commander Jong, while Young follows behind her, thinking to himself that he has no chance of victory with his skill level. He realizes that his only option is to take advantage of their numerical superiority. Commander Jong notices that they have launched a synchronized attack and remarks that it's not a bad decision. He dodges Li Huan's strike and tells her that if her plan were going smoothly, she should have been able to block his counterattack, but she utterly fails to do so immediately. After Commander Jong rushes toward Yong with incredible speed, Yong manages to block the attack, causing the commander's spear to be pushed backward. He then calls out to Li Hua, urging her to attack now as she strikes from above. Young retreats without Commander Shong noticing. Then he throws his spear aside, grabs his sword instead, and declares that there is only one way to execute a proper strike against the commander at this moment. That is by using the ultimate technique of the Mujan Infinite Dagger, known as Demon Slayer. Commander Jong senses imminent danger as Young approaches, but he successfully blocks the sword strike. However, that was not all Young had in store as he gathers his strength for another attack. He then unleashes a powerful fellow, feeling triumphant as his strike lands on the commander. But to his shock, he realizes that Commander Jong blocked it with his bare hand. Following that, Young is sent flying and crashes into the wall from the sheer force of the commander's attack. Commander Jung then informs him that 37 days have passed since their training began. Clapping his hands, he tells Young that he has managed to awaken his sixth sense at that moment. Li Hua attempts to attack him, but he lands a direct hit on her. He then tells them that they still have a long way to go before reaching the required level before leaving. While they both lie on the ground completely exhausted, he informs them that today's training is over. Li Hua feels deeply frustrated with Young, and tells him that she trusted his plan. But Commander Jung pays no attention to their argument. His focus is entirely on the injury to his hand caused by Young's attack. He remarks that he used mana, yet Young still managed to injure him. Even though he used only a minimal amount, it still meant he had broken his own rule of not using it. He then adds that Young possesses a keen combat intuition, allowing him to know when to abandon an attack if it's the best option. Expressing his excitement, he says that the family's elders will fear him in the future. On the 47th day, Li Huno awakens her sixth sense, and afterward, both of them graduate from Commander John's training. Young takes advantage of the remaining days to rest and review everything he has learned during this. That is until his older brother Myung arrives. Myung is the eldest son of Li Taixin and is known as the Twin Stars because he is both a 2-star ranked mage and a martial artist of the same rank. He has earned admiration and fear, in equal measure, yet too young. He is simply his only brother. The two sit together, and Mike apologizes to Young for not giving him enough attention as an older brother due to his overwhelming responsibilities. Young responds that there is no need to apologize. Ming then smiles and jokingly says that although this is their first time meeting, he feels like he got to know him very quickly. Young replies saying that even if he is his half-brother, there is no way he wouldn't recognize his elder brother's face. However, Myung is displeased by the term half-brother and asks Young not to say such things again. He insists that although they have different mothers, he sees no difference between him and his other siblings from the same mother. He then reflects to himself that Young has yet to attend his naming ceremony, but seems to be overly harsh on himself at that moment. Young apologizes and promises not to say it again. Myung responds that there is no need to be so formal. After all, he is his brother. Young smiles at him, thinking to himself that his brother had always been kind to him since childhood. The knight takes something out of his pocket and tells Young that it is a gift for their first meeting. He explains that he acquired it while at the France University of Mages. He believes Young will benefit more from it as it is a miraculous medicinal elixir known as ruler's wine. Young is overjoyed with the gift and exclaims that only 500 milliliters of this elixir are produced annually at the France University of Mages. He then thanks his brother warmly, but Myung senses something strange. He tells Young that he seems a little different, prompting Young to ask what he means. Myung laughs and says that all the siblings he has met so far have viewed him as a rival, but he is glad that Young is different, though it's something he isn't used to. However, Young surprises him, saying that what he just said is not true. He adds that as long as he is a member of the Lee family, he must be seen as a competitor. Then with a cheerful smile, he tells Young not to think of him as his sweet little brother, as no one knows how he will grow. He may even become his greatest rival. Someday, he hopes to be a worthy opponent for him. Myung bursts into hearty laughter, then approaches Young and places a hand on his head, saying that he looks forward to the day Young becomes his strongest rival. Young gazes at him happily, thinking to himself that his older brother had always cared for him the most, and for that reason, this time he would make sure to protect him. A few days later, the time finally arrives for the second trial of the Lee family. The naming ceremony. Young and Li Hua head to the Blue and Red Island, a place where the color of the land shifts according to the amount of mana in the atmosphere. This island has been the site of the Lee family's naming ceremony for generations. The guard accompanying Young and Li Hua informs them that he will explain all the details they need to know about the naming ceremony. He emphasizes that they must live on the island for 3 weeks to prove their abilities. He then hands them devices, explaining that they must wear them at all times so that their locations on the island can always be tracked. He instructs them to keep the devices on at all times, then adds that the test chamber will open 2 days after the 3-week period ends. After that, he drops them off on the island, wishing them good luck before leaving. Shortly after, Li Hua calls out to Young, saying she wants to tell him something. He responds that she has finally made up her mind, but she looks confused as she hasn't said anything yet. He tells her that he knows she has been trying to tell him something since they were training together. Li Hua becomes extremely flustered and asks how he knew. Young gives her a strange look, wondering to himself how he could possibly not have noticed something so obvious. He then urges her to say whatever she wants, assuring her that he will at least listen. Li Hua places her hand in her pocket but hesitates, prompting Young to ask what's wrong. She then pulls out a small bottle and tells him that what's inside is poison. She explains that it is only effective on children under the age of 15 and evaporates if exposed to air for more than 5 minutes. She also mentions that the poison causes long-term damage to a person's mana pathways. Young immediately asks who gave her this poison, but she simply replies that she obviously won't tell him, then throws the bottle onto the ground. She then tells him that there is no longer any evidence of anything, and that she will face him fairly and honorably without resorting to using such poison. Young is shocked by her words, but she continues saying that she wants him to take the test seriously. Young smirks at her in defiance, assuring her that even if she hadn't said that, he would still give his all in the test. Li Hua then picks up her bag and asks if he has all the tools he needs. She stresses the importance of heading to the center of the island once he gets used to its terrain, as she has heard that place is extremely dangerous. Young responds indifferently, assuring her that he is aware of that, then asks if she's worried about him. She scoffs, saying that there's no way she'd be worried about him, and that the only thing she fears is that he might die before settling things between them. Then suddenly they hear a loud sound that makes them uneasy. Li Hua repeats her words, urging Young not to die no matter what happens, then walks ahead of him. Young watches her as she leaves, and recalls telling her before that the place he was heading to was not merely the outskirts of the island. Then, with excitement, he declares that the time has finally come to go to the center of the island. Meanwhile, the family elders observe them from a distance, commenting that Li Hua has performed exceptionally well, just as they expected. They note that she has already completed the required monster hunts. They also remarked that despite this being her first real combat test, she has slain a large number of creatures. One of the elders then states that nothing less was expected of her and that there is no possibility that she is unqualified. He then asks the elderly Commander Sheng how long it took Li Hua to awaken her sixth sense. Commander Zheng replies that she achieved it in just 57 days. The elder responds that this was unexpected as she was supposed to need a full 2 months to complete the awakening process. However, he silently acknowledges that she possesses extraordinary talent, but also that someone had helped her develop at a much faster pace. That person was none other than Young. The ninth son, the elder, then asks about Young's current situation. Commander Jung replies that Young appears to be searching for a place to set up a hiding spot. This angers the family elders, who believe that he has chosen to run away like a coward. They question how someone from the Lee family's bloodline could act so disgracefully. Myung interrupts them, explaining that trying to find a hiding spot in such a dangerous place is a strategic move, not something to be condemned. However, the family elders scoff at him, stating that while his words are correct, it seems they have set their expectations too high because of Li Huan's performance. The elder then comments that being an ordinary person within the Li family is the greatest sin. They continue, talking Yan, saying that he is merely doing things that anyone could accomplish, something unworthy of a member of the Li family. This enrouts me. Young, he retorts indignantly, questioning when his family became so heartless as to scorn a child merely because of his origins. At the same time, he appears puzzled, as he cannot understand why Young is heading toward the center of the island. He then realizes that he is not the only one unaware of Young's intentions. Even his uncle Hong seems nervous about it. The scene shifts back to Young, who finally finds a suitable location for himself. He burns some natural herbs to ward off insects and reptiles, then seals the entrance with tree leaves. The family elders acknowledge his exceptional stealth skills, but the elder is left in shock by what Young does next. He removes the tracking device from his wrist, places it on the ground and covers it with some herbs to hide it completely. Commander Jung laughs, remarking that no one can predict what Young will do next. Meanwhile, Young tells himself that there is no reason to let them track his movements. He then adds that he can now use the Mujin Infinite Dagger however he pleases. Since he is currently on the island, he must gather as much as possible. With that thought, he eagerly sets off after collecting a large amount of herbs and cooking them. He grumbles in frustration, saying that wild herbs are the worst thing ever. He notes that anyone looking at them would assume they were nothing more than water, infused with a magical herb. As he stares at his meal, he recalls memories of his past life, when he didn't have enough money to afford even a cheap elixir. This had forced him to follow herb collectors and pharmacists, searching for magical herbs. He remembers the words of his aunt Li Kyung, who told him that the island was filled with magic, and that he should seize this opportunity to enhance power through magical techniques. She explained that preparing a soup from magical herbs would amplify his magical abilities, which is why he decided to try it himself. After finishing the entire bowl of soup, he feels as if he is about to die from its awful taste, but he declares that this is only the beginning of the battle, which will last for 3 weeks, 18 days after the naming ceremony began. The scene shifts to Myung's office, where he is immersed in his work until someone knocks on the door. The visitor apologizes for interrupting him, to which Myung replies that his face already makes it clear that he brings bad news. The visitor is Jang Han, Myung's assistant, who informs him that a large group of nomads has crossed into South Korean territory. He explains that initially believed they would move through hidden routes, but instead they entered directly into the south and are now only 2 days away from the Lee family's magical stone mines. Myung responds that these nomads are a dangerous group of criminals who commit the worst atrocities, emphasizing that they cannot be allowed to enter the family's land under any circumstances. Jung-hun then tells him that while they may appear to be ordinary nomads, he is certain that some unknown force is orchestrating their movements from behind the scenes. He also adds that there is additional intelligence indicating that Young Chi has mobilized his forces toward the northern border. Young Chine is the dominant power in Jungwon, a region they share with the Song family, and they have always exploited this to launch assaults on their territory. Myung realizes that the news of his father leaving the main house has leaked, making this the perfect time for their adversaries to make their move. He then asks Jang Han whether the family's intelligence division is aware of this information. Jung Han replies that he managed to obtain it before they did, because he had been specifically assigned to monitor the situation at Mikanung's request. In the end, Myung instructs Jang Han to collaborate with the intelligence division to gather more information. He adds that it feels as if something else is unfolding behind the scenes. Hoping that it is nothing more than just a hunch, the scene shifts to a location within the island, where a glowing magical circle is active from within it. A figure emerges, muttering mockingly that 2 days are more than enough to kill an illegitimate child. The scene then transitions to Young, who is engaged in a fierce battle against a dragon-blooded beast of the 7th level known as Draco. Draco unleashes a massive wave of fire toward Young, but he swiftly dodges and immediately launches a counterattack. He then uses the Demon Slayer technique against Draco, delivering a fatal blow that ends its life. Standing still for a moment, Young reflects on the sheer difference in power that dragon-blooded beasts possess. He admits that if he had faced Draco upon arriving on the island, he would have died instantly. He also notes that it took him 19 days to reach the dragon's nest, but he realizes that staying here any longer would be a waste of time. As he walks away, he mentions that there is another reason why he came to this place. Suddenly, Young drops low to the ground upon hearing a sound coming from the forest. He mutters to himself that his suspicions have been confirmed. The lizard men have appeared. However, something has felt off since yesterday. The lizard men are supposed to stay at the outskirts of the island, yet they are now in the center. What's more, they are attacking with intelligence. This is highly unusual, as these creatures are known for their low intelligence and weak combat capabilities. He wonders if an external factor has influenced their behavior. To confirm his theory, he deliberately cuts down several trees, creating a loud noise. As soon as the lizard men hear it, they become terrified and flee immediately. Young smirks, stating that his suspicions were correct. Something is definitely happening. He then charges at them, swiftly eliminating them all except for one, whom he decides to follow to discover its destination. Meanwhile, the scene shifts back to the man who arrived on the island. With young and Lihua instructor Nishiyama, he mutters sarcastically that the members of the Lee family are truly bizarre. He wonders how a mere child like Young could slaughter so many beasts on his own. However, despite all his skills, Young is still just a child, and soon enough he will fall into an obvious trap. Confidently, he adds that he is certain. You won't have to resort to his backup plan. From a distance, Young observes the situation, noting that everything seems so blatantly obvious that he begins to doubt whether it is really just a trap. But his doubts turn out to be justified. He quickly realizes that instructor Nishiyama is actually a beast tamer. However, he questions how someone from outside the family was able to enter the island. It should have been impossible unless there was a magical circle within the island that was used for entry. With a smirk, Young scoffs, saying that if his guess is correct, then someone within the family must have orchestrated this. He hesitates, debating whether to inform the family and wait for reinforcements. However, he quickly dismisses the idea, realizing that, by the time help arrives, it will be too late. Moreover, he wouldn't be able to uncover any information about the mastermind behind this scheme. As a result, he determines that he has only one option left. He activates his stealth ability. He decides to use this technique to completely erase his presence, allowing him to approach Nishiyama undetected and kill him personally. Moment Young strikes at an instructor, Nishiyama, who is holding a strange bird. The bird immediately begins emitting an unusual sound. This alerts Nishiyama to the presence of someone behind him. Young then realizes that the bird is actually a detection tool designed to sense nearby threats. This prevents him from landing a lethal strike, giving Nishiyama enough time to block the attack. Nishiyama gazes at Young in astonishment, impressed by his abilities. He remarks that he never expected an illegitimate child to be this powerful, admitting that Young has exceeded all his expectations. However, Young retorts sarcastically, stating that the problem isn't his own strength, it's his opponent's overwhelming weakness. Infuriated by Young's provocation, Nishiyama commands his beast to attack, but Young counters them using the 7-star sword technique third form, effortlessly annihilating them. Just as he thinks he has gained the upper hand, he is suddenly caught off guard when chains wrap around his sword, preventing him from continuing his assault. Young quickly realizes that the cause of his predicament is none other than Nishiyama, who laughs maliciously, declaring that Young has fallen into his trap completely. He then reveals that this technique is one of the most powerful methods to completely prevent warriors from using their magical energy. With a mocking tone, he adds that without magic, Young is nothing more than a weak child, and resistance is now futile. However, Young responds with confidence, saying that since his magical energy has been blocked, he has no choice but to use another technique, one that allows him to restore and replenish his mana flow at a speed far beyond the effect of Nishiyama's petty trick. Indeed, Young successfully breaks free from the chains that had bound him and lunges at instructor Nishiyama. Upon noticing the shock on his opponent's face, Young smirks and sarcastically asks if he has given up on the idea of running away or if he still intends to flee. Nishiyama, flustered, demands to know how Young managed to break through the barrier. Young coldly replies that he has no reason to explain anything, especially since his movements have already been reported to the clan. Resistance is futile at this point, so Nishiyama might as well surrender. Yet Nishiyama smirks deviously, saying that it doesn't matter to him. All he wants is to eliminate Young and reclaim his freedom. Young is puzzled by his words and asked him to explain what he means. But before he can react, a massive figure appears behind him and delivers a devastating strike. The force of the blow sends Young crashing into a tree, causing severe injuries. He collapses to the ground, struggling to regain consciousness. As he lifts his head, he is met with an overwhelming shock. Standing before him is none other than the colossal beast, the ruler of Guilt, Gilbranum Province, a towering phantom beast of the mountains. It is one 3-tier nightmare-class creature, making it impossible for a mere beast tamer like Nishiyama to have full control over it. Nishiyama turns to Young and sneers, stating that he has finally understood the situation. Though the taming process is not yet complete, there is one command the beast will obey without hesitation: kill. He advises Young to stop struggling. Resistance is meaningless, and he should accept his fate. Thinking quickly, Young realizes that he must remain calm since the mountain beast is not yet fully under Nishiyama's control. His best option is to eliminate the treacherous beast tamer first, however, to stand a chance against the phantom beast. He has only one option left, one that he can hardly believe he's being forced to use. He takes out a pill, an illegal stimulant known for its immense risks far outweighing the boost in magical energy it provides. The moment he swallows it, he feels an overwhelming surge of mana coursing through his body, his power rising exponentially. But in the back of his mind, he remembers the technique his aunt once warned him about, one he should only use in absolute life-threatening situations, yet Young knows this is the moment to use it. He begins amplifying his mana flow, then launches a direct attack on the mountain beast. However, it's incredibly tough. Hide makes it barely flinch. Undeterred, he strikes again, and this time, He senses that he is getting closer to taking it down completely, but suddenly the mountain beast lets out a thunderous roar, unleashing a surge of magical energy. The energy field restricts Young's movements, preventing him from advancing. However, his dark energy reacts to it, forcing him out of the beast's range, and giving him a new opportunity to shift the tide of battle. Seizing the moment, Young charges toward the beast once more, unleashing the Black Storm technique, followed by the demon-slaying Chuma Sword technique. He delivers a swift and decisive strike straight at the mountain beast. At last, the creature collapses, letting out a final earth-shaking roar before falling lifeless under Young's finishing blow. But Young falls as well. The drug side effects begin to manifest, and he realizes that he has no time to waste. The mana-enhancing technique, combined with the Heaven's Core technique, is consuming his body at an alarming rate. He cannot endure it much longer. He has only 10 seconds left, and since the mountain beast missed its last attack, this is his only chance. Reach the beast tamer as time ticks away. Young rushes toward Nishiyama when suddenly, he notices a faint red thread extending in front of him. He follows it, tracking it back to the beast tamer's exact location. The moment Nishiyama sees Young approaching, his expression shifts to pure shock. He cannot believe that Young has found him this quickly at the last second. Young attempts to land a fatal blow on Nishiyama, but time is not on his side and his strike falls just short. He needs only a few more centimeters to end it, forcing him to extend his reach quickly before his body completely gives out. With precise control, Young successfully extends his sword and slices through Nishiyama in the blink of an eye, displaying remarkable skill. However, he collapses immediately afterward, gasping for breath. Now it is crucial for him to tend to his body. If he loses consciousness here, it could mean his end. He pulls out a small vial from his pocket, a medicine his aunt had instructed him to drink. Immediately after using the Heaven's Core technique, Young begins to drink, but despite that, he still did not feel his body, and soon he collapses to the ground, desperately trying to stay conscious before the monsters reach him. When Young opens his eyes, he finds himself in a vast, pure white space, unable to determine his exact location. Panic suddenly grips him and he attempts to get up as memories of the beast tamer and the monsters flood his mind. However, he soon discovers that his body refuses to move, as if it has been shattered into countless pieces. At that moment, a strange voice speaks to him. The voice expresses its astonishment that Young has made it this far, stating that these matters are so perilous that humans cannot even comprehend them. It then questions how two separate entities could merge within one body. In such a manner, the voice continues saying that it had hoped Young would never awaken, as that would have made things easier. But now there is no other choice. It commands him to consume that thing. Young focuses on the object in front of him and is stunned to see that it is a purple hive stone. He is immediately shaken, realizing that this means it is none other than the legendary purple hive. Or the voice corrects him, saying that it is not what he thinks. It is not the voice that must be consumed, but rather he must consume the stone, for the covenant has already begun. It tells him that he must grow stronger from now on, so that time itself does not devour him. At that moment, Young realizes that the voice belongs to none other than the mountain beast. Had just fought before it vanishes completely. It leaves behind those final words. Young awakens to find Hua standing before him, scolding him for addressing her without honorifics. She reminds him that she is his elder sister. However, she decides to let it slide this time, considering his injuries. She then asks if he is feeling any better. Young examines his internal condition and discovers that his muscular and skeletal systems have been completely wrecked. However, his magical energy has increased exponentially, confirming that what he saw was real. He had indeed consumed the purple hive core. Young responds to Hoya, stating that his mana pathways have been torn. His internal organs have suffered some damage, and there are fractures in his bones as well as muscle ruptures. However, nothing is severely life-threatening. As he reflects on it, Young realizes that the purple hive core was supposed to belong to Hua. It is a miraculous elixir that enhances the body and increases magical energy while also granting immunity to poisons and curses. It was something he had long wished to obtain in his past, like from Guangcheng Island. Yet now that he has acquired it, he feels a twinge of guilt. He then asks Hua why she is here. Before she can answer, they are suddenly interrupted by their eldest brother, Myung, who arrives and asks Young if he is feeling better or if he requires magical treatment. He hands him a magical potion to aid in his recovery. But Young tells him that he does not need magical treatment, though he decides to drink the potion anyway. As Young slowly sips the medicine, their older brother Kyung watches with a sorrowful expression. He then asks Hua to leave them alone for a moment. She agrees and tells them to call her when they are finished. Mimes then tells his younger brother that if anything had happened to him, he would have wiped out any entity or organization linked to that beast tamer, regardless of their identity or strength. Young is deeply moved by his brother's words and expresses his gratitude. Myung continues, saying that as a member of the Songmoli clan, Young is a role model among warriors. However, as his older brother, he cannot see things in such a positive light, because that Young did was nothing short of reckless. Young replies that he had never anticipated the appearance of the mountain beast. Had he known, he would have waited for them. He apologizes for his recklessness, and Young tells him that he must learn to differentiate between confidence and brashness. At that moment, Young states that since he has dealt with the beast tamer, ownership of the information should now return to him as well. Young responds, saying that he knew Young would say that. He then begins to explain the details of what happened, revealing that instructor Nishiyama was one 5th-tier mage from Japan's yin-yang school. However, he was expelled for attempting to use forbidden magic. Most likely, the people who orchestrated this incident activated advanced spells and magical artifacts while the mountain beast was asleep. Their goal was to eliminate Young by manipulating the beasts. Young then asks if that means they still haven't identified the mastermind behind the attack. Myung replies that the beast tamer is now on the brink of death, making it nearly impossible to extract any information from him. Hearing this, Young is taken aback. He then remarks that the true target of this incident wasn't him. It was actually his older brother, Myung. Myung asks what led him to that conclusion. Younger explains that the infiltrators managed to enter undetected, and the response to their presence was deliberately slow. This suggests that the goal was to tarnish Nyong'o. Mutation Myung confirms that Young's deduction is correct, then instructs him to act as if he knows nothing about the situation. Younger asks if there's anything else, but Myung reassures him that he's fine and has only sustained minor scratches. However, he cannot stay away from his position for too long, or chaos will ensue. Young grabs his brother's hand. It proposes a deal. Minchung raises an eyebrow, asking what the terms are. Younger states that he will report that he was the one who discovered the beast tamer's infiltration, and that he had given prior orders to his brother. He will testify accordingly. Young wants to solidify this narrative so that it appears as though he uncovered something even the family's intelligence division failed to detect. Young responds that it would be better to tell the truth for Young's own good. However, Young clarifies that if he admits to acting alone, hostility toward him will only increase and others will become more wary of him without anyone benefiting from it. Understanding the logic behind his brother's plan, Myung realizes that this deal is a mutually beneficial exchange. He then asks what Young wants in return. Younger requests permission to enter the Hall of Prominent Manuscripts for 3 days, saying that it will be more than enough time for him. Myung scoffs, calling him an opportunist, but ultimately agrees to the deal. They shake hands and Myung expresses his appreciation for Young's proposal. Young simply responds that there's no need for thanks, it's just a deal after all. Myung then comments that he had no doubt Young had already devised a plan to handle the situation even in his absence. But their conversation is suddenly interrupted by the vibrations of Myung's phone. He glances at it and tells Young that the summons is definitely from the Blue Sword Squad, meaning he must leave immediately. Before departing, he tosses Young the Mujin dagger and tells him that he will keep this matter a secret and won't tell anyone about it. Younger laughs, saying that just as he expected, his older brother was never naive. After Myung leaves, Hwa returns and asks Young if his conversation with his brother ended peacefully. Young replies that everything went fine. She then asked him which hall he plans to choose, reminding him that 3 weeks have passed and the halls should now be open. Younger replies that she should be the one to choose first if she wants an answer from him. Hwa confidently states that she will definitely enter the Hall of Shadows. The most difficult one,